everyone. This is Caroline Tugwell for GuanXi magazine, and I'm here in the middle of Lugu with Andy, who has invited us here to have a look around some tea farms and talk about his business, Eco Cha. Hi, Andy.
Hi.
Thanks for inviting us.
My pleasure.
So, I want to start by asking you, what is it about tea that inspires you?
Tea is, I guess it was the first thing that I connected with here in Taiwan, culturally. When I first arrived in the first year or two, I became aware that pretty much every household had a designated space for brewing tea. They had a tea table, and when you go into someone's house, they'll just invite you to come and sit down at their tea table and brew tea. From our Western point of view, we would call it a ritual, I guess. But it wasn't serious. It was quite relaxed and social, or is quite relaxed and social. So it kind of just naturally grew, you know. I started drinking tea. I like the setting. I like the cultural ritual, the kind of social ritual that Taiwan has built into it. My housemate at the time, an American guy that was studying here as well. We were in Taichung area studying at Donghai University. His tutor was well into drinking tea. And he started bringing tea home from his teacher, and we started drinking it more and getting to know what this tea was about. After drinking it for a year or two, we decided we'd like to go out and buy some tea by ourselves, and we took this motorcycle trip from Taichung out to what I now know is Mingjian Township, which is the closest tea growing area to Taichung. It's not very far away at all, actually, but at the time it seemed like quite the journey. There were no English signs whatsoever back in the day, and it was a whole different world. And of course, tea in general has a world history that is vast, and it's changed whole societies, and wars have been fought, and there's even theories that the pulling Europe out of the Dark Ages was connected with bringing tea into their world.
So tell me about how Eco Cha was born.
When I returned to the States in 1992, I went and lived in Los Angeles for a year, and of course I wanted to buy Taiwanese tea. And I went all over LA, and I couldn't find anyone selling Taiwanese tea, and I had to resort to going to Chinatown and going to the famous name, the most famous name here, which I won't bother mentioning, but it's a company that sells tea all over the world, and you can find them in most Chinatowns. Needless to say, it's not the most interesting tea, but it does represent Taiwanese tea. But it's quite expensive, and I wasn't satisfied. At that time, I already had some sense of discernment. So that way back then, and then in '97 I moved back to Los Angeles with an intention to start bringing tea back. I would come here once a year and buy tea, usually in the spring, and bring it back. Somewhere between 2005 and 2010, I wanted to take it to the next level and think properly about how I could represent this product, but more comprehensively this culture, this tea culture that I had become enamored with by that point. So I put a lot of thought into it, and at that time I was turning on to the whole concept of sustainability in relation to the tea industry. How can I put these two interests together, environmental consciousness and the love for tea? That's how I arrived at the name Eco Cha. ECO meaning ecology or environmental consideration, so to speak. Yes. And cha is the Asian word, it's in many languages, is the word for tea. In Chinese it's Eco Cha, which means loosely translates as a sip of tea. Yeah. And those three words in Chinese, Eco Cha, have a Zen connotation to them in the sense that in this moment, in this sip of tea, you know, the universe exists. And it's also just a cultural phrase. The term Eco Cha really represents hospitality and generosity, and embodying what I most value about being here and the people, their innate kindness and generosity and hospitality, offering tea. And in my effort to take it to the next level in representing the tea industry and also the tea culture that I'm immersed in now.
Because we were talking a little bit earlier and you were telling me that what you offer on your website is like a buffet of choices.
The most fundamental aspect of sustainable practice that I can embody in my position as a representative of Taiwanese tea is transparency. To really just offer the consumer a transparent view of where this tea comes from, both in the cultural sense, the tea production sense, and then also in the environmental sense. To offer enough information that people can responsibly choose what they want. So our website offers a lot of information about the teas that are produced here and the teas that are most popular here. And my personal mission and I feel capability is to offer consumers beyond Taiwan a resource to learn about this whole industry and culture.
What's it like being an expat or a foreigner in the tea business here?
In terms of my interface with farmers and other tea people, it's wonderful. You know, I'm always welcomed. I feel like I almost have a privileged role in being a Westerner that is sincerely interested in learning about tea. People meet me with the same level of eagerness and inspiration that I bring to the table, so to speak. And that's been obviously very appreciated from my perspective, but also advantageous to allow me to achieve my goals, you know. When I couldn't compete with the established merchants in buying quantity, people would offer me small amounts of tea at wholesale prices so that I could represent the tea on an international platform. So farmers and tea makers, they're interested in their tea being offered on the international market. They can say my tea is sold worldwide or whatever. They see my sincere interest. You know, like I show up in factories and I ask questions with as much consideration to not get in their way, so to speak, but they know that I'm not just trying to make a buck, you know, and in fact they realize that it's hard to make a buck selling tea, and I would be doing something else if it was a business interest. As an expat, you know, it's up to us really, but it's not easy sometimes to integrate into the local culture, and there's a lot of levels of cultural integration. But this commodity has offered me a platform to meet people and get more involved, you know. And really, it's not an exaggeration to say that all of my long-term, or what I would call real friends, Taiwanese people that are my real friends, are connected to tea.
I remember seeing you on TV a few years ago. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
But basically, we were a cover story on a business magazine that drew a lot of attention from TV stations. And there are these lifestyle shows that feature foreigners that live in Taiwan that have settled down and have connected to this world in some sort of unique way. It did a lot we became famous in Taiwan among Taiwanese people for a short period. On a business level, it didn't really help us grow in terms of revenue or anything because we don't sell tea here. It's an express. In my personal approach, I'm not interested in trying to compete with the local market. My role and ability is to represent this on the international market on an English platform.
Yes.
So it did allow us to gain recognition here in Taiwan, and that has benefited to an extent in the industry. People have heard of me, tea people, tea producers or whatever, that I hadn't met prior, have heard of Ecocha through this media representation. So yeah, it's been good, and it also kind of made it more real for us. Like, yeah, we are a brand and we do this and we're representing tea on the international platform, and we feel like we do it pretty well, you know. So it was a bit confidence building for me, and having to represent in Chinese, that was a bit of a task, you know. I didn't take that one on consciously, but all of a sudden I'm on TV having to speak, you know, long interviews like this in Chinese. That brought it to the next level for me. So yeah, it's been a good adventure. EcoCha was established officially in 2013, and here we are in 2020.
Right.
And things have grown slowly but steadily. And
Yeah.
I feel grateful that I've had the chance to play this role. I didn't really, it wasn't a vision that I had early on. It kind of built up and grew on me, and I grew into it, so to speak. And it's still a small startup company in a business perspective, but we're a brand that represents Taiwan, and we're known in tea communities around the world as the Taiwanese tea representatives. That people, consumers know that we live here and we're constantly involved in the industry. We're not just buying and selling tea.
Yeah.
And that makes me feel good.
Well, thank you. I can see that your business is, you're going to be taking it to the next level very soon, I'm sure.
I'll show up. And I'm really happy to be here. And I'll just finish by saying that just you guys coming here today is one of the more fulfilling aspects of being in the role that I am. I get to invite people into this world that I cherish. I think it's a really beautiful pocket of our universe to share, and the fact that we can just show up at this 100-year-old house and sit down and have a chat, that's cool.
It's really cool. And thank you so much for inviting us.
Thanks for asking me.
Yeah.
Okay.